All right, what's up guys? Welcome to today's video. Today we're gonna be talking about how to bring up your, how to bring up lagging body parts, weak points, which if you're like me is all of them. So, super common question I get a lot, and there's definitely some pretty actionable, like simple things we can do from a training and programming standpoint to kind of address that stuff. We got a little stim-free Transparent Labs pump today, creatine, HMB, code Evan. Transparent actually just dropped they updated their collagen formula, so it's actually a more efficacious dose now. And I'm just including this because, as you guys know, I'm still dealing with some soft tissue stuff, and there is some research that's kind of split down the middle right now as to whether collagen supplementation, in addition to vitamin C supplementation, beneficial for just kind of like strengthening tendons and creating tendon adaptation. So I figure, you know what, why not? It doesn't hurt me to take some additional collagen, you know, make my hair and nails and skin so, you know, extra beautiful. It also gave me an excuse to buy tasty vitamin C tablets. Because I'm not gonna lie, your boy's been pretty hungry recently. So like, these are kind of candies, you know? All right, so I'm taking a little bit of L-carnitine here as well, which has a terrible oral bioavailability. So you have to take a shitload. And then it also, when it's digested in the gut, can potentially create TMAO, which is potentially carcinogenic. So you want to take some garlic with it, which is what that second bottle is there, to neutralize the TMAO. And Josh was just making fun of me for bringing it to the gym, but I'm too stupid to remember to take it when I leave it in the cabinet at home, so I take it to the gym. Because preparing to succeed is preparing to win, or whatever that fucking quote is. I'm honest with myself, you know? I'm not gonna blow smoke up my own ass. Oh yeah, Evan, you're organized and remember stuff often. No, I got way too many other things. Lots of parts of my life are organized, like my business, very organized. My bedroom, not so much. Priorities. It's like when a little kid comes up to you, look what I can do. And you're like, sick, dude. Where are your parents? Go away. All right, so first, and a lot of you will already know this if you watch my content, first thing you can do to bring up a lagging body part, train at the beginning of a session. So I have little itty bitty delts, which is why we're doing delts first. And the reason that it's going to improve the stimulus there is because as you progress through a workout, you're gonna create central nervous system fatigue, which is gonna reduce your ability to recruit muscle fibers. So the stuff you do at the end of the workout, you're gonna be recruiting less muscle fibers with those muscles than you would be if you were to do them at the beginning. And so I'm doing delts first because I wanna make sure that all of the effort I'm putting in, I'm getting the most amount of bang for my buck, if that makes sense. So do not do anything else before your priority muscle groups. And then of course, if you have more than one priority muscle group, then, you know, which I do, for example, because as I said earlier, you know, unironically, it's all of them. My chest is gonna come next. And I just prefer to order my exercise based on delts being a little bit weaker than my chest, arguably. And also because if I do this exercise, my chest stuff tends to feel better afterward than if I do it the other way around. So that could be something that also comes into play there as well. But rule number one, trying to bring up a weak point, train it first in the session. We want to make sure we get a ton of blood in the muscles so you can really connect with it. Can't even say that with a straight face. We want to force it to grow, bro. You fucking better grow. right, so you guys probably saw a couple of those reps were a little shaky, looked a little different from some of the other reps, and that's why it's beneficial to generally use more stabilized movements, because especially on my first set, I had the strength to get that 5th rep with the 80s, but my technique with this movement's not great because I just started doing it. And it's, regardless of how good my technique is, it's always gonna be less stable than like a machine overhead press. So it was actually the instability of the movement that caused me to finish the set rather than my like upper chest and front delts actually hitting failure. I'm just doing this movement because my shoulder likes dumbbells because of the freedom of movement. So there is a benefit to that. Whereas with a machine, when you're a little bit more constrained, that's more positive from a hypertrophy standpoint, but just with my shoulders kind of being cranky right now, they don't really like that as much. So that's why we're doing dumbbell. But yeah, as far as why stability is good, there's a perfect example. All right, so the second thing that we can do if we're having lagging muscle groups or we have a muscle group that's really just being really stubborn, just addressing our execution, our form, exercise form, and our intensity. So a lot of times I have people who come to me and say, man, I just can't grow my side delts. And I watch them do lateral raises and they're not using enough weight, they're not really training hard, they're just kind of catching a pump. Or legs is another classic one. Like, it's difficult mentally to train legs in close proximity to failure. And so a lot of times people's legs are lacking because they just don't fucking train hard. So intensity is gonna be a big one. Even if you have bad exercise selection, if you're training really hard, you're still gonna be stimulating you're gonna be creating a very strong growth stimulus in the muscles that are involved. That being said, if you do an exercise wrong enough, you can include a lot of wrong muscles or involve a lot of muscles you don't mean to. And so if your form and execution is terrible, for example, if you're doing overhead press and it turns into, you're arching your back so much and your butt's coming up and everything, and it's turning into like more of like an incline press, well, yeah, you're probably not gonna get a lot of side delt from that because you're not in the frontal plane anymore. You're gonna be more in like a transverse plane, right? So just making sure you're training properly and training hard enough. Obviously I can't tell you, necessarily how to do each movement because it's gonna be kind of dependent on your structure and stuff, but those two things are definitely going to make a difference. I'm gonna go up to like 4.5 plus on this, get a little freaky with it, and then I'll do a set of Kelsos after. All right, so this is arguably the most important thing you can do aside from sequencing the exercise first in the workout or the lagging muscle group first in the workout, hitting it with a higher frequency. We know based on the data, I'm not gonna get into it, higher frequency is gonna be more effective for stimulating muscle growth. Now you cannot use the same amount of volume, especially per session when you're taking a higher frequency approach, because you obviously are gonna have less time to recover before you hit that muscle group again. And you probably also can't even use the same amount of volume across the week if you're hitting that muscle group more often. You also don't need to. That's kind of the benefit, or one of the benefits of using a higher frequency approach. So I would definitely recommend hitting a muscle group more often if it's lagging. Obviously you're gonna have to get creative with your split. If you're somebody who has to take the same rest days every week, you might have to do, like, let's say it's chest, you might do upper, lower, and then like an upper body, some muscle group day, lower body, and then another upper body, some muscle groups day, and then hit chest like first on 3 of those days or something like that. Obviously, it's gonna depend on what your split looks like, but taking a higher frequency approach with muscle groups is going to generally, ideally you could do it with every muscle group, but which you kind of can with full body, but that's gonna definitely help bring up lagging muscle groups.
Good.
All right, so the last thing as far as bringing up a lagging body part is just gonna be exercise selection. Obviously, everything here plays a role, but if you have, especially if you're more advanced, exercises you're picking are always gonna play a really big role, but especially from like a stability standpoint, for example, if you're more advanced, then that is going to become more of a dictating factor in terms of seeing progress with a muscle. So just making sure that you are picking exercises that allow you to progressively overload for a long time, they're stable, and they load the function of the muscle in a relatively isolated fashion. That's kind of the overarching kind of criteria that you want to look for, just making sure that you're picking good exercises in addition to everything else that I already talked about today. If you're doing shitty exercises, for example, a barbell squat isn't necessarily a shitty exercise, but if you're somebody who just doesn't have great leverages for squatting, it may be honestly what's holding you back from growing big quads if that's kind of the only exercise you really seem to be doing. That's obviously an extreme example, but you get my point. So yeah, those are all the things that I would probably recommend in terms of addressing lagging body parts.